They thought she was just another desperate job applicant. But what they didn't know was this woman didn't come for a job. She came for payback. And by the time they found out, it was already too late. Nina Taylor walked into the building like a ghost in daylight, silent, composed, and unnoticed. The security guard barely glanced at her ID. Reception gave her a disinterested nod and waved her to the waiting area, where 5 other applicants sat tapping their feet, clutching portfolios like shields. No one paid attention to the woman in the gray pantsuit. No one ever really did. The building was marble and glass, sterile and echoing with the scent of wealth. The company, Harrington & Lowe Investments, was one of those high-rise monsters in Midtown Manhattan that devoured smaller firms by breakfast and called it synergy. Their HR manager, Shelley Worthington, was famous for being as cold as the granite floors. Nina's appointment was at 9:30 a.m. At 10:12, they finally called her name. She rose smoothly, adjusting the silver pin on her lapel. Her resume was pristine, deliberately unremarkable. Her heels clicked evenly across the polished floor, every step rehearsed. The hallway was lined with frosted glass doors, all labeled with names of people who thought they'd earned their positions. People who believed they ran things, but Nina already knew they didn't. Shelley greeted her with a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Miss Taylor, come in." Nina offered a handshake. Shelley didn't take it. Inside the room there were 2 more people. A smug senior recruiter named Kevin, who wore arrogance like a second skin, and Marcy, a junior analyst with twitchy hands and the nervous energy of someone desperate to please. All 3 sat behind a glass table, clipboards and notes in front of them like weapons. Nina sat down slowly, folding her hands in her lap. Calm, steady, watching, Shelley dove in first. "Your resume is interesting," she said, a thin veil of sarcasm coating the words. A bit thin for someone applying to an assistant-level role at Harrington & Lowe. Kevin laughed softly, looking Nina up and down. "We usually attract a higher caliber, to be honest." Marcy didn't laugh. She just looked away, like she already sensed something off. Nina nodded, unfazed. "I'm sure you do." Shelley leaned forward. "Let me be blunt, Miss Taylor, you don't exactly scream investment firm material." Nina tilted her head. "And what does that scream sound like?" That was when Kevin leaned in, smirking. "It doesn't sound like someone who shows up in a 10-year-old suit with community college credentials and a 2-year employment gap." Nina smiled softly. "You did your research." Kevin raised an eyebrow. "That's the job." Shelley chuckled, jotting something down. "We're done here, I think." And just like that, it was over. But Nina didn't move. She simply looked at Shelley and asked, "Do you enjoy working here?" Shelley blinked. "Excuse me? Do you enjoy working for this company?" Nina repeated. Kevin frowned. "We're the ones asking the questions, Miss Taylor." "I know," Nina said, her voice still soft. "But I'm just curious. I always like to know if people enjoy the place they're about to lose." Shelley narrowed her eyes. "Is that a threat?" "Not at all," Nina replied, standing slowly. "It's just a forecast." And then she walked out, calm, silent, as if she hadn't just lit a fuse. Outside the building, Nina removed her blazer and walked 2 blocks east, where a black town car was waiting. The driver opened the door wordlessly. Inside, a man in a dark suit with silver at his temples handed her a leather folder. "Everything's in place," he said. "They didn't recognize you?" She shook her head. "Not even close." He handed her a tablet. "You want to see what's next?" Nina scrolled through the contents. Names, internal memos, footage. Her lips twitched. "This," she said, "is going to be fun." As the car pulled into traffic, she looked back once at the towering glass building. She had watched her husband build that empire from scratch, had stood beside him in the shadows while he took all the credit, and when he died, leaving her everything, shares, control, power, he made one request: don't let the snake stay in the garden, and Nina Taylor had just stepped into the garden. You don't need to raise your voice to shake an empire sometimes. All it takes is silence. and the right signature. 3 years earlier, the reading of the will. The air in the law office was thick with tension. Leather chairs, heavy curtains, and the slow tick of a grandfather clock gave the room a courtroom atmosphere. Everyone was here. Investors, board members, distant cousins, vultures in designer suits. They all expected to walk out richer. Nana sat at the end of the mahogany table, her face unreadable. She wore black, simple, clean, and cold, a widow's armor. At the head of the table sat Mr. Langford, the family's attorney for over 2 decades. His hands trembled slightly as he opened the sealed envelope, clearing his throat. To my wife, Nina Taylor, he began, I leave my personal assets, including the Manhattan estate, the upstate cabin, and full ownership of my private account ending in 3398. Nana didn't blink. Langford continued, but more importantly, I leave her sole ownership of my voting shares in Harrington and Lowe Investments. The room turned to ice. There was a pause, confused whispers and darting eyes before Langford dropped the final weight. As per the amended shareholder agreement, my stake, constituting 41% of the firm's voting power, transfers to Nina immediately. Someone at the table gasped. Another cursed under their breath. She was now the single largest stakeholder. Back to present day, Nana stood at the top floor of a luxury condo, sipping black tea as the city crawled beneath her. She watched it like a woman who no longer feared the fire. She'd spent 2 years watching the board gut her husband's vision, turn a people-first firm into a predator. They'd pushed her out with polite smiles and ignored her silent presence at shareholder meetings. That ended now. Her assistant, Eliza, walked in briskly. It's done. The digital shell company is registered. Taylor Strategic Holdings now owns your 41% of Harrington and Lowe. Nina gave a small nod. We'll call for a vote in 2 weeks, Eliza said, placing a folder on the table. But we've already got enough to spook them. Inside the folder were the pressure points. Kevin, secretly running a consultancy, on the side, non-compete breach. Shelley, involved in age discrimination lawsuits buried by PR. Marcy, clean but nervous, and desperately loyal to Shelley. Perfect. Nana tapped a photograph of Shelley. This one first. She's brittle. One strike, and she'll shatter. 2 days later, Harrington and Lowe, HR department. Shelley entered her office to find a single yellow envelope on her desk. No return address. Inside were 4 photographs. Her, on a Zoom call with 2 rejected candidates over the age of 55. Both later filed complaints. Beneath the photos was a printout of a legal complaint marked, settled, sealed. She froze. No note, no signature, just one sentence written in red marker on the back of the last photo. Your closet has thin walls. Shelley didn't sleep that night. That same evening, Kevin's townhouse. Kevin Whitmore returned home from a corporate dinner, half drunk, smug, and full of himself, until he found the flash drive taped to his refrigerator. The files on it, every contract he'd personally signed through his unofficial consulting group, while simultaneously closing deals for Harrington and Lowe. Tax fraud, ethics violations, and worst of all, one contract linked to a shell company owned by a rival firm. He stared at the screen, heart pounding, skin cold. There was no sender, no demand, just a line typed in a simple TXT file. You're not invisible. Not anymore. Back in Nina's penthouse. Phase 1 is complete, Eliza said, watching Nina's reflection in the glass. Nina didn't turn. They'll panic. Try to contain it. Try to trace it. But they won't find us. No, Nina said quietly. Because I'm not hiding, not really, I'm just waiting. Eliza paused. What happens if they push back? They won't, Nina said calmly. Not once they realize who owns the floor beneath their feet. She picked up a remote and turned on the wall screen. A map of the company's internal network appeared, and with a few clicks, she navigated to a classified employee list, board members, legal holdings view. She smiled. The name Taylor Strategic Holdings had just appeared at the top, and no one at Harrington and Lowe knew who it was. Yet. But someone was getting suspicious. Someone who recognized Nina's eyes even when her name had been erased from the building, and that someone was about to make a very dangerous mistake. They remembered her as a shadow, but shadows grow longer before the sun sets. 2 weeks before the shareholder meeting, Harrington and Lowe headquarters, Marcy Taylor, no relation to Nina, just a cruel twist of fate, was the youngest member on the board. Sharp, savvy, but deeply insecure, she owed her position to Shelley, who had mentored her, molded her, and, intentionally or not, kept her in the shadow of other louder voices. But today, Marcy's gut screamed that something was wrong. 3 board members had canceled their regular Thursday lunch. Kevin hadn't responded to any emails since Monday, and Shelley had been quiet. That was the biggest red flag. Marcy tapped her fingers nervously on her desk, then opened the internal shareholder ledger, just to check something. That's when she saw it. A new name on the voting power list. Taylor Strategic Holdings. Her heart skipped. Taylor? Her own last name. Coincidence? Maybe. But the weight that came with that name in this building was impossible to ignore. She dug deeper. Ownership of 41% of the company. Silent acquisition. No press releases, no internal announcement, no board introduction, just appeared. Her stomach turned. She looked at the name again, then on a whim opened the archival folder from her first board meeting, just to reread the old executive seating chart. And there she was, sitting in the 4th row, barely mentioned. Nina Taylor, 3 floors up. Boardroom hall. Kevin was already waiting when Shelley arrived. He looked worn out, eyes bloodshot. Did you get a visit too? Shelley nodded slowly. A warning. Kevin didn't speak for a moment. Then, it's her, isn't it? Shelley blinked. Who? Kevin leaned in. Nina. Richard's wife, the widow. Shelley laughed, but it was hollow. Don't be ridiculous. She was soft, quiet. She couldn't even sit through board meetings without fidgeting. Kevin dropped a folder on the table. Soft people don't own 41% of a billion-dollar firm, and they sure as hell don't leak sealed lawsuits anonymously. Shelley opened the folder and stared. Inside was a printout of Nina's name tied to Taylor Strategic Holdings, buried in legalese, just one layer of obfuscation removed. And on the last page, a digital signature with the date of transfer. 3 years ago. The day after the funeral. She's been playing us, Kevin whispered. From the start. Elsewhere, Nina's downtown office. Eliza placed a slim package on Nina's desk. Inside was a security badge, an older one. The photo ID slightly faded. The name, Nina Harrington Taylor. I found it in archives, Eliza said. Before they removed your name from the internal system. Before they rewrote you out of everything. Nina stared at it, expression unreadable. They forgot you, Eliza whispered. Nina finally looked up. No, she said softly. They erased me. There's a difference. She opened a drawer and took out a small box of cufflinks. Her husband's. She held them for a moment, then placed them beside the badge. This company was built on legacy, she said, on loyalty. But after he died, they thought I was just decorative. They gave me condolences and backhanded praise, then stripped my name off the glass and handed his dreams to wolves. Eliza waited. So now, Nina continued, I give them exactly what they gave me. Later that night, Marcy's apartment. Marcy couldn't sleep. Her laptop glowed in the dark as she dug through archived press releases, articles, and old board photos. Nina was always in the background. Never speaking. Never smiling, but always watching. She found a video clip, Richard's last public appearance before his illness. Nina stood beside him as he spoke about legacy, trust, and the future of Harrington and Lowe. Marcy paused the video, zoomed in on Nina's face. The eyes. Those were not the eyes of a passive woman. Those were the eyes of a strategist. She grabbed her phone and called Shelley. Voicemail. Then Kevin. Straight to voicemail. Then, she heard it. A knock at her door. Soft. Rhythmic. She froze. Another knock. Then silence. She walked slowly to the peephole. No one there. On the ground. A package. She opened the door cautiously, picked it up, and stepped back inside. Inside the box was a photo from the board's 2019 retreat in the Hamptons, everyone smiling, Nina included. Except this time, her face was circled in red ink. And behind the photo, a note. The woman you erased remembers everything. Back in the office next morning, the internal email went out just before dawn. Subject: Emergency shareholder meeting requested. Vote of confidence, all board members received it. Anonymous sender. Legal language flawless. The demand: a vote. On-board reorganization, citing compromised integrity, conflict of interest, and failure to maintain fiduciary duty. It was signed TSH Taylor Strategic Holdings. Now the wolves are cornered, and nothing is more dangerous than a quiet woman with a long memory and legal control. But there's one thing they still don't know. Nina never planned to stop at revenge. She wants rebirth, become prey. They built their kingdom on power and silence. She planned to take it down with one question. Shareholder emergency meeting. Main auditorium, Harrington and Low. The lights in the auditorium buzzed overhead. Too bright for this hour. Too white to feel comfortable. Marcy stepped inside, instantly, spotting the nervous huddles of executives whispering in corners, phones buzzing in their palms. Kevin stood near the front, avoiding eye contact. Shelley hadn't arrived. Everyone was tense. Everyone was waiting. And then, the door opened. She walked in, calm, composed, dressed in navy blue, shoulders back, chin lifted, and silence clinging to her like armor. Nina Taylor, not the grieving widow, not the erased board member, not the forgotten wife. She walked straight to the stage, heels echoing in deliberate clicks, like a countdown. No one stopped her. No one dared. Marcy watched, frozen. She thought she owns the room, and everyone knows it now. 30 minutes earlier, security office Shelley had tried everything. She'd called every contact in legal. No one answered. She tried to reach Damien in PR, voicemail. Even her cousin, who sat on the pension fund's advisory committee, had ghosted her. Then came the internal memo leak, a PDF attachment detailing the misappropriation of funds. Transfers linked to accounts under shell companies, all tied to Kevin and her. Dated, signed, time-stamped. Nina had them cornered. Now, all Shelley could do was delay. She stormed out of the security room and raced toward the auditorium. She was going to speak first, or so she thought. Back in the auditorium, 9 a.m. sharp, the gavel slammed once. Order. This emergency shareholder meeting is now in session, announced the interim counsel. Nina stood just beside him, arms folded. The microphone crackled. The first motion is a vote of no confidence against current board members Shelley Kramer and Kevin Malden for breach of fiduciary duty and internal misconduct. Gasps rippled through the room. Shelley burst through the side doors, face flushed, but it was too late. Kevin stood slowly. "This is a farce," he hissed. "You can't just walk in here and rewrite the rules." Nina turned toward him. Finally, she spoke. "I didn't rewrite anything," she said calmly. "I just read what you never thought I could." Flashback. 3 years ago, the night after Richard's funeral, Nina sat at her kitchen table alone. The condolences had all gone home. The wine had stopped pouring. The lawyers had handed her the papers. That's when she saw it. An obscure clause in her late husband's will. If at any time the remaining board fails to uphold fiduciary standards, ownership may be consolidated and redirected into a singular trust vehicle, one designed to protect legacy. Richard had left her a seed of power, a small thread. Nina pulled on it for 3 years. Now the thread had unraveled their empire. Back to present. The vote begins. One by one, hands went up. Marcy hesitated. Shelley locked eyes with her, mouthing, "Don't." But Marcy raised her hand. Kevin's hand trembled as he gripped the table. The vote passed. Shelley and Kevin were officially removed. Gasps turned into stunned silence. Nina walked to the center of the stage. "For years," she said, her voice steady. By the time they realized the walls were closing in, Nina had already sealed the exits. Harrington and Lowe, Executive Boardroom, 8:03 a.m., Emergency Shareholder Meeting. The tension was thick. Every member of the board was seated except one. The door opened, and in walked a figure none of them had seen in years, Nina Taylor. But this was not the quiet, soft-spoken woman they remembered trailing behind Richard. This Nina wore a slate-gray suit, heels that echoed like hammers, and an expression carved from stone. She took the head seat at the table, the chairperson's seat. Gasps rippled down the row. Shelley stood up immediately. "You don't have authority to sit there." Nina didn't flinch. She slid a leather binder across the table. Inside, notarized documents, legal ownership, and majority voting rights. Shelley stared. Percent. Fully transferred, unchallenged, untraceably built over 3 years. Nina folded her hands. "I believe we're here to discuss a vote of confidence. I called the meeting and I now hold the deciding interest in this company." Kevin swallowed hard. "This is insane. You waited years to do this?" Nina didn't blink. "I gave you years to do the right thing." 10 minutes earlier, inside Marcy's office, Marcy paced, phone in hand, still rattled by the note left at her door the night before. She was too junior to stop what was happening, too deep inside Shelley's camp, but her gut told her she'd backed the wrong side, and if Nina could pull this off, she needed to pivot fast. She picked up her office phone and called a contact in legal compliance. "Check internal emails from the last 48 hours, she said. "There's something coming, and I think we've all been looking the wrong way." Back in the boardroom, the meeting commenced. Nina stood and began calmly listing a series of grievances, each backed with documents, internal memos, and legal disclosures. Misappropriation of executive funds, suppressed whistleblower claims collusion with a subcontractor who also happened to be Shelley's brother-in-law, the quiet silencing of minority shareholders. Each bullet point was a scalpel, precise and undeniable. Shelley tried to interrupt, but Nina's voice cut through. "I gave you my husband's legacy. You turned it into your playground." Kevin tried to deflect. "You could have come to us sooner." "I did. You ignored." "So I made myself impossible to ignore." She clicked a remote. The screen lit up with a graph. Company reputation, client loss, lawsuit risk index, all rising like flames on a chart. Then she said the sentence that froze everyone. "I'm not here to ask for your resignation." Shelley narrowed her eyes. "Then what?" Nina leaned in. "I'm here to give you a choice. Step down, or I take this to the press." Across the street, in a parked sedan, Eliza watched the meeting through a secure internal feed, fed to her laptop from a hidden camera planted in the boardroom days earlier. She smiled as Nina's calm fury filled the room. "She's doing it," she whispered. "Every one of them. Unraveling." Next to her sat an envelope, sealed, addressed to a national investigative journalist. Inside, every piece of evidence Nina had gathered. The plan was always layered. If the board folded, fine. If not, the world would know by noon. There was no way out. Back in the boardroom, 9:16 a.m., the vote was called. Each board member hesitated, but one by one, the verdict became clear. Kevin, abstain. Thomas, step down. Lucia, step down. Shelley, refuse. Only Marcy remained. Every eye turned to her. She took a breath, looked down the table, first at Shelley, then at Nina. Then she whispered, "Step down." Shelley's jaw tightened. Her knuckles whitened. She looked like she might stand up and scream. But she didn't, because she knew it was over. Aftermath. 10:02 a.m. A mass email was sent out company-wide. From Board of Directors. Subject, Executive Reorganization and Statement of Direction. Effective immediately, Shelley Vance and Kevin Walsh have tendered their resignations.
Harrington and Lowe will begin a new chapter under the interim guidance of Ms. Nina Taylor, majority shareholder and strategic director. Private office, later. That afternoon, Nina sat alone in the chair Richard once used. The city skyline burned.
Gold behind her. She held an old photo of the original Harrington and Lowe team. Richard in the center. She beside him. Young, hopeful, dreaming. They thought she'd faded with him, but she had spent years in the background, studying, collecting, becoming, unerasable, and now she had reclaimed everything. Eliza walked in. The press has picked up the resignation. You're trending on finance news. Nina smiled faintly. Let them talk. I'm not done. The legacy play. Shelley thought she had survived the fall, until she opened the letter. 3 weeks later, Shelley's townhouse. The sun was barely up when the doorbell rang. Shelley shuffled to the door in slippers, her eyes still puffy from sleep and rage. She opened it. No one, just a thick envelope. On the welcome mat, stamped with the Harrington and Lowe crest, she froze. Her heart thudded as she bent to pick it up. Inside was a single-page letter. No greeting, no signature, just 5 typed lines. The non-compete was expired. The audit is complete. Your severance is frozen. Your stock options have been seized, and yes, your brother-in-law flipped. Shelley staggered back against the doorframe. That was the moment she realized Nina hadn't just won. She had buried her. Flashback, 1 week earlier, Harrington and Lowe boardroom. Nina stood at the same head of the table where she had once been humiliated. Only this time it was her board. She didn't bark orders. She didn't gloat. She simply laid out a 5-year plan for restructuring, growth, and legacy preservation, all under a new initiative. Project Taylor. It was quiet, calm, inevitable, and it was just the beginning. Meanwhile, Marcy's apartment. Marcy scrolled through news articles, watching the company's stock rebound under Nina's control. A new podcast episode had just dropped titled, The Widow Who Outsmarted a Corporate Hydra. Nina's story was spreading, a modern-day chess game, played in silence, won in shadows, and Marcy? She'd switched sides just in time, but part of her still couldn't believe it. How Nina had pulled the entire scheme off, how she'd stayed invisible until the very moment she was unstoppable. 1 month later, company conference hall. Nina stood before the company for the first time. Not as a guest, not as Richard's widow, but as the owner, the woman in charge. The room was packed. Every employee, from interns to executives, held their breath as she stepped to the podium. She looked around for a moment, then smiled. I was once told I didn't belong in this room, she began. That I wasn't technical enough, that I wasn't tough enough, that I was too quiet, too polite, too unseen. She paused. Turns out, that's exactly what made me dangerous. The room erupted into applause. Later that evening, private office. Eliza entered quietly. It's done. The new leadership site is live. Your face is front and center. Nina nodded. And the nonprofit wing? Final paperwork filed. You named it after Richard. She smiled. He built the bridge. I just walked across it. Eliza sat down. Can I ask something? Nina looked up. Why now? Why wait this long? Nina leaned back, her eyes calm, but blazing. Because I wanted them to forget me. That's when they made their biggest mistakes. She opened a drawer and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside, Richard's old cufflinks. She set them on the desk, next to a framed headline. Richard, Taylor's widow reclaims his empire and rewrites its future. Across town, Kevin's empty office. A single sticky note sat on the mahogany desk. You played the game, I changed the rules. N.T. Nina walked alone on the balcony of her high-rise suite, the city glowing beneath her. She held a glass of red wine, the wind tugging gently at her coat. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was restoration. Her silence had been power. Her grief had been fuel. And now, her legacy would speak louder than any of their names. They laughed at the woman. In the back of the room, they forgot she was taking notes now. They'd never forget her name again. Nina Taylor.